Welcome back, everyone. I am here today with Malcolm Nair, who's had a near-death experience and so much more that we're going to get into today. Malcolm, thank you so much for joining me.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I would love to start maybe by hearing a little bit of backstory on you. I know you had a near-death experience. What was your life like before the NDE and what led up to it?
My life before the NDE, and what it was like was just like everybody that we say now I say non-player character, sheeple, or just an ordinary life, but I was unconscious. I really didn't realize a lot of the unconscious behaviors and the unlearned behaviors of life, and I didn't understand love or value, respect. I didn't know proper fundamental family values. You could say I was a narcissist. I was toxic, negative. I just didn't know how to forgive. All I knew was what I learned from my family. My parents, they divorced when I was 1 year old. And my mom was in an abusive, toxic, narcissistic, aggressive relationship, physically abusive, mentally abusive, emotionally abusive. And my mom was also, but they separated through physical abuse and, having the court and judges and police officers involved. So that was early on introduced into my life. She told me stories how she used to try to kill me before I was born by drinking bleach. And
Oh, wow.
she said my dad used to kick her and punch her in the stomach and things like that. I do see pictures of love and, like me growing up and stuff like that. But these are some of the stories that she shared with me. And when they divorced, early on, like 3, 4, 5 years old, my dad fought hard to get some custody. So at those ages, I started to travel from Alberta to BC, or BC to Alberta. My mom had custody, but my dad also ended up getting some custody. And every summer holidays, 3 months out of the year, I would travel with an escort or police officer first would drive me because there wasn't any interaction. And they would take me to the airport, walk me through at that age, and I'd have a custodian take me to the boarding, and then I would have a flight attendant take me. And I just remember crying and crying, being separated from my mom, and then just not knowing how life was going to be. So early on, there was a lot of toxicity because I would listen to, on the other end, when I was at my dad's house with my stepmom, was a lot of abuse and your mom's and all the bad words like the C word, the B word, all of that and this and that, talking a lot of toxicity into my paradigm, into my subconscious mind. And at that time, I didn't realize the kind of impact it was going to do to me, but it was very depressing. They wanted to diagnose me with ADHD, and I had learning disabilities and a lot of problems: migraine headaches, nightmares, dreams, tossing and turning, a lot of bad, severe vomiting when I would have these headaches. My whole childhood, and I would just always wonder and think to the universe or think from my soul or think of source, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to use a lot of the thought processes and abilities that I'll talk about later. But in the beginning, I was full of negativity and doubt and fear and scarcity. And so as I got older, I ended up becoming a rebel, skipping school and getting into drugs and hanging out with friends and getting involved with girls and drinking and skipping school and throwing parties, house parties, hanging out with my older sister, getting away with a lot of things without my family's awareness. And as I got older, they started to learn about me, know about me, and I started to leave house and run away and be a bad rebel. Like 12 years old, I ran away from home. And I took a semi with someone, a friend of a friend of a friend, 15 hours. And I took Greyhound, 15 hours to BC to Calgary. And I dropped out of school by the time I was in grade 6. And so grade 7, I barely made it through. And I didn't, even if I did attend, I was one of those guys, like the new kid on the block, but I earned a lot of friends quick and fast. People were always so curious about me. And so as I got older, that was kind of my life story, moving around back and forth. I moved into over 50 to 100 homes in my lifetime. By the time my mom, I stopped living with my mom as a single mother, she moved alone herself 50 times by the time I was like 8, 9, 10 years old. And then me, subconsciously, the way karma and the way like life progresses, your cycles and patterns catch up to you. And I started living that life, not keeping a job, drinking and driving, because I saw this from my father when I would go visit him as I got older, getting drunk and speeding and just being ridiculous and abusive and toxic. And then seeing my mom in one relationship after another. I had about 4 to 5 father figure stepdads in my life. And my dad got remarried twice. He's with his third. My mom got remarried twice. She had a third, and she had like uncle boyfriends in between. So I had a lot of that growing up. And, I had my first child when I was 17. But if we rewind a little bit, when I ran away at 12, by the time I was 14, I was a crack addict. So I was heavy into drugs. And by the time I was 15, I was homeless. So I remember with a backpack in the middle of the winter, just going around, trying to get free bus rides, train rides, but sleeping in Dunkin' Donuts and donut shops and anything that was 24 hours. I'd watch the security leave from the banks, and then I would go open the door real quick before it shuts, and just so I could sleep or lay down before I get kicked out. So that's just a little bit of a backstory of some chapters of my life. And as I got older, I didn't realize what was catching up to me and the patterns and the cycles that I was leading that led to my NDE. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. So you've had quite a 180-degree transformation to get to where you are today. Was your NDE the source of that or something else?
No, the NDE wasn't the source of that. When I was 23 years old, life obviously caught up to me severely. I was not listening to the whispers. I was not listening to my soul calling out to me, that voice inside that always says, don't do that. That's not the right way. That's not the right path. Don't hang out with this guy. Don't hang out with that girl. Go home after this. I call it like I would slap it in the face, like how some people have a NDE come back to earth and do a lot of bad things like I did. And it's like a slap on the face of those second chances we're given. And that's what we do in life day to day. We don't make sacrifices and oaths and dedications, and we don't command and demand our life into existence the right way. We don't face our fraudulences and our mistakes, and we don't admit and accept our wrongdoings, and we repeat them over and over and over and over again. So I kept doing that. That was my life. And I was drinking and driving, but I was on drugs after a party. And from that party, I ended up not feeling much of anything. I took like over 3-4 grams of mushrooms, 2-3-4 lines of cocaine. I took like 8-9-10 beers. I was smoking weed, and I was smoking cigarettes. I was a a chronic smoker. I used to smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day, and I used to smoke weed every day, and I used to do drugs here and there, dabble in ecstasy and all the bad things. And a lot of people, I've read a lot of comments. I've had probably millions of things I see in the comments that, oh, you should have died. You don't deserve to be alive. If that, you know, the NDE, yeah, if you look at comments afterwards, but so what I realized about judgment and self-judgment and external judgment and stuff, I'll talk more about later, but I ended up getting what I deserved. And I was going 100 kilometers an hour, and I sideswiped 2 vehicles. I banged my head, smashed my window, and I blacked out. And upon getting back into consciousness, I accelerate even harder on the gas pedal and go up a lawn and hit the corner foundation of a brick home and completely cracked the foundation of that house, but I ejected head first out of the vehicle. And at that moment, I became conscious for the first time in my life.
Thank you so much for watching. As a way to show my gratitude, I am continuing to offer my one-on-one sessions almost 75% off what they were. I personally love offering the lower prices, and you guys do too, because you've been booking up my sessions and supporting me, which I so much appreciate. My spots are limited to 6 sessions per week, and they fill up extremely fast. So don't wait, book your spot today. You can sign up for a 25-minute energy healing, a 45-minute energy healing and spiritual coaching session, or you can pick a custom session and we can fit the session to meet your needs. We can just talk. Some people just want to talk about deconstruction because they don't have anybody else to talk to. I am here for it. I love meeting you guys face to face and getting to spend some time with you, and I am here to serve you. Book your session here. Now back to the show.
I became conscious aware, and I began to realize that I am a soul, I'm a spiritual being. I'm not my name, I'm not my hand, I'm not this body. And I was able to be at all places at once simultaneously. I was able to be inside the house, see how the son reacted. I knew it was a son. I knew the mother. I knew everyone that was home before they came outside. They were shocked already. I read their mind. I can hear their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions. They come outside immediately with a gasp of air, and they see my body outside of the vehicle, completely crushed. And there's blood everywhere. My shirt's ripped. I'm bleeding, losing all my blood, and my half my body is completely out, and my knee is stuck in between the front seat and the steering wheel. And because my leg broke, I had brain damage, bleeding in my brain, my lung collapsed, I had 75% paralysis, severe nerve damage, muscle tears all over my body. Scars, severe glass shreds all in my forehead, my neck, everywhere. I was just done, and I was in coma for 2.5, 3 days. And while I was in coma, well, aware and conscious, I was able to witness and see and hear the ambulance, and I was able to see almost sometimes in the past, present, and future. And I'll explain why before it sounds weird. As they're rushing me to the hospital, I was hovering over my body, and I'm able to hear the thoughts of the ambulance, them thinking to themselves that, he's losing too much blood. I don't know if I can save him. And they're panicking. And they're trying to rush me to the hospital, and they have some hope to make me survive, but there was no hope because I was losing too much blood, losing my oxygen. I was going, and so they had me on life support when I get to the hospital. But I'm viewing, like almost remote viewing, and able to see everything, and able to hear the nurses, hear the specialists, the doctors, the neurologist specialists, the heart specialists, everybody taking me into surgery, and my spirit following me around everywhere, following my body everywhere. And my spirit stayed close to my body every time my body was going into a surgery. It was always there. But at the same time, I was able to be other places. For example, phone calls to my mom, I would hear the phone call when they're about to dial in their head before they say hello. Is this Malcolm's mom? I could hear those thoughts. I can hear that my mom, and then come in here, and then her fear, her anxiety, her stress, her emotions, I can hear. I can hear those thoughts and feelings when she's coming and who she's going to call, what they're going to do, the worry, the stress. So every phone call I was able to tap into and hear, even when she was about to call my uncle or my family members from other countries, and tap into that frequency, so to speak, and show up there with my awareness, them receiving the call, and then speaking and telling my mom everything and her telling them everything. And the fact is, well, when I woke up afterwards, from life support, I told everybody, like my mom, my sisters, my family, what they were thinking, what they were praying, what they were speaking, and what their current thoughts are. When my spirit was coming close to my body every now and then, my spirit knew that my body was dehydrated. It was 10 times over the blood alcohol limit. And I found that out when I got discharged to a Care West rehabilitation center, when the doctor told me my blood levels were 10 times over the blood alcohol limit. And so when I was in a coma on life support, I couldn't breathe with the neck brace and the tube in my throat. And I was very, very dehydrated, and I felt it, and my spirit knew my body wouldn't survive. So my spirit literally came back into my body, gave me the strength. Remember when I woke up off life support, I was paralyzed. Like, I was in paralysis, so I couldn't move. If I wanted to, it was like this, or it would just, I could not, everything was damaged. But my spirit went like this, and I needed water. My mom started crying, screaming when she saw me, and she asked the nurses to ask the doctors, and they said, no, we can't give him any liquid. We don't know what's going on with him. You have to wait. We'll ask the doctor, but the doctor said no. My mom said, no, I don't care. I know my son. He's giving me a signal. And this was while I was in, and they were calling her crazy. They're like, he's in a coma, man. Just relax. We can't. And she's furious. And we had a phone call. We have a phone call every now and then, every other year, and we'll talk about this. And it's kind of funny. She always still goes quiet till this day. So anyways, they said, okay, we'll give him ice chips. The ice chips alone helped me hydrate my mouth, my lips, my throat, and just, it really helped me for some reason. My spirit left my body, but I still felt very uncomfortable in my neck. I had a lot of neck damage, like C1, C2, 3, 4, T1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was damaged. I had a brachial plexus injury. I was completely broken and torn, and I couldn't do nothing, right? So my spirit took off my neck brace. And so that's when the nurses said he's responding, and my mom was in a panic. And so my spirit would do things like this. Also, when I had my car accident, when I hit the house, my body was actually found on the passenger side of the hood. So that's another thing that our spirits have the ability to give us power. We call them miracles. We get extra superhuman strength or whatever. So I actually was found on the passenger side. So that's how the investigation was in the news. that his body was found. We don't know who the driver is. We have to investigate this. They were trying to investigate and harass me as soon as I was released from the hospital. But the doctors, the nurses said, he won't be able to talk the same. Because of this paralysis, he won't be able to walk the same or move the same. Or, just a lot of things was wrong with me. I had a lisp. I was numb from the whole right hemisphere of my whole brain and my body. Everything was numb. Even when I started to get moving, like going through specialists and going to these doctors that gave me steroids and stuff like that, my recovery was super fast. But I'm not sharing with you the reason why. My ability to connect with source was very direct. So I was able to talk through my spirit and my spirit through me to find out the truth about everything. So I was being told that this is not true. You have the ability to heal. You have the ability to fuse these broken bones. You have the ability to heal your lungs, and you don't. The doctors and the specialists were taking so many appointments and so long. By the time they were trying to find out what was wrong with me and making me a poster child, they were trying to get seven other doctors to follow the specialist to monitor me. They were using me as a case study. They asked me permission. I said, yeah, you can use me as a case study, because they didn't understand how I was healing, because they were still trying to find out and diagnose me. Even the chiropractor specialists, everybody that was coming in to see me, while they're trying to pinpoint what T1 or C what it was, I was already doing the work within myself to self-heal. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I want to ask you more about that. You were told that you have the ability to heal. You mentioned healing your lungs and fusing broken bones. Is that something that you could share more about, how you were able to heal yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. So the way I teach it to my clients in the curriculum is like a step-by-step process to get them understanding their mind and their brain and their thoughts and feelings and emotions first, because it can interfere. When I was so connected to spirit, I also had a lot of dysfunction. Like when I woke up from life support, the first words that came out of my mouth was like, what the fuck is wrong with my leg? Or right before that, I was like, oh mom, you're here. How was the drive? This is validated. She told me, I had to confirm for my next podcast, like what I actually said when I woke up. She's like, you said that, I'm glad you're here. How was your drive? And immediately after, I looked at my leg and I said, what the F is wrong with my leg? Why can't I move it? Why is it so swollen? And I just became very, back into the mind, back into the body, back into the pain and suffering, back into who did me wrong, who treated me like what, and to take everything under the rug that they brushed under and said, forget about it, this is the past, family and all the generational, paradigms that our ancestors and our grandparents and our families and aunts and uncles, every culture scape that there was that I had broken in me, I wanted to shove it in everyone's face. So I became more toxic, more powerful than what I was before my car accident. I was more scarier, dangerous, rude, stronger, but at the same time, I was so connected to my spirit. And I had the ability to raise the blood pressure monitor at will and to lower it how I wanted to. I was able to hear people's thoughts and where they're coming from, what appointment they're setting, and which doctor is going to come to me. While my doctor was in the 5th room and I had to be the 19th room, I knew every step of the way while I was in Care West Rehabilitation Center. But the healing, because I was so connected, the way I teach it to my clients is different, but it's because I was so, it's weird. I was unpure and pure at the same time. And I used my dark energy or my negative feelings and thoughts to trust in my spirit. At that time, I didn't know I was doing that because I was spirit. But when people need to understand is, that's what you need to understand. You are a spirit. You are your soul, and the trust has nothing to do with your brain, your logical and analytical thinking at all. Not your thoughts, not your feelings, not your emotions. It's just you are. If you want something done, I went into my cells. I took my brain waves, my frequency, my spirit into my cells wherever I wanted to, and went to my knee that was broken. I have two bolts, two screws this big in my leg there, and I said, "You're fusing. It's fusing," and I visualized and I pictured it fusing, and within 3 days, I fused my broken bones. In one day, my collapsed lung, I completely healed. I completely started having better movements and function once they discharged me. So they wanted to discharge me because I was a fighter. They said, don't walk, I walked. They said, don't get off the bed, I got off the bed. They said, don't lift your leg up, don't put it down, I did it. I said, it's fusing. They laughed, chuckled at me. They didn't believe it because they said, you don't get it. Your accident is like crazy. Your car was crushed. You ejected headfirst out of your vehicle. You shouldn't be alive. Just relax. Just take your time to relax. But my spirit's like rushing me to heal. Like it said, no, you're going to heal. You're going to walk out of here in 3 days. So I'm like, I'm going to walk out of here in 3 days. Within 3 days, I was completely ready to go. So they put me in a spare hospital room because they needed the private one for a new patient. And within another 3 days, 6 days, they got a room for me in Care West Rehabilitation Center. And so I started on my journey then. Within another few weeks, 3 weeks, a month, of completely recovering, ready to go, and going through physiotherapy and my range of motion and everything, I find out, I shake my head like hard, and there's blood. It felt like cold water, but blood building up in my brain. So after surviving an NDE and getting out of the coma, I come to find out I have a 50-50 chance of surviving and living again. And so I knew what I had in my brain, but the doctors didn't know. And they kept suppressing it with more oxycodone, Percocet, and morphine. And they kept giving me amitriptyline and tramadol and stuff like that. And T4s. I was on like 30, 40 medications a day, like a lot. I was getting addicted, but my spirit knew I was getting addicted. So I had to tell the doctor, please listen to me. Send me into a scan. I have whooshing in my brain, whooshing in my head. They're like, how long have you had? So I'm like 2-3 weeks now. And he's like, okay, Malcolm, I understand, but we have to wait. I said, no, we're not going to wait. You're going to send me before I start like telling you really loudly and the whole place will hear me. And he got worried because I'm very like, what do you call those type of guys that are very like confrontational? So he said, well, it's $1,000. I said, I don't care about your money. And I raised my voice. He's like, okay. And he took me to a separate room around the corner and he said, okay, Mom, we'll do this. We usually don't do this. We're breaking protocol, but calm down. Within another couple weeks, they wanted me in the psych ward upstairs, and they wanted me to see a specialist, a neurologist, a psychiatrist. And because my family was saying he's bitter, he's toxic, he's like swearing at us, and I was so awoke but I didn't know how to keep it contained. I didn't know how to be at peace and harmony and do those things at that time. I was very aggressive and I didn't know how to learn yet. So it was a long journey. I'm talking 10, 15 years still before I became whatever you want to call enlightened, awoke, and the Kundalini and all that kind of stuff took me still over 10 years of a journey. I had to learn how to quit drinking. I had to learn how to quit smoking all by myself. No therapy, no healing, no healer. I had to learn myself through guided intelligence how to do all of this. So with the bleeding in the brain, they send me, I had 20 to 40 cc's of blood building up in my brain. As soon as they drilled the hole in my brain, I have a scar. Sorry, it's weird looking here and trying to move my hair, but I have a scar underneath my hair. It looks like on your hairline. They drilled the hole, all the blood came rushing out. And so they stitched me up, stapled me up right away. And I started, sorry, I'm moving too fast here. There's a process in letting go and surrendering and forgiving, and accepting and admitting that, you know, this life, I could die at any moment, or I trust. I trust in the unknown and I trust in the unexpected. You know, and after having a phone call with my mom and telling her, Mom, you know, they're giving me a 50-50 chance to live and I have to make this decision. They said, I can have a phone call to call you. What should I do? She's like, well, what are the chances? I said 50-50. She said, well, what do you think? Do you feel it's going away? I said, no, it's starting to hurt again. Like I'm starting to get build up in a headache, and, you know, I want to get it done, but I don't. Like, I just dealt with this. I just survived. It took me so much work. I was so attached to what my spirit was doing, like the abilities to, like, now I got to surrender again. So then I go into surgery and I accepted it, my fate, you know, and that's kind of what I had to do when I went into the tunnel, and got sucked into the vortex, and I was in the unknown and I didn't know what to do, where I was going, if I was going to come back, if I was going to die. But I made a conscious decision to come back to this world, because when I had my life review, I saw everyone that I did wrong and I used that helped me. And at the same time that I was seeing my past, I was able to see them in the present moment as well, like what they're doing in their life and how good of a person they are, or where they're at. And like I saw how I treated my kid at that time and what kind of father I was, what I was going to be, you know, how uneducated I was. You know, if my first son can grow up to go to college, university, or elementary for that matter, he was in elementary, was like 5-6 years old at the time. And I was afraid that life was going to go so far and I was going to go so far back. So that's why I call it, I quantum jumped. Like, I changed my life 20 years in advance, you know, doing all of this recovery work, inner healing and awareness, and being able to realize my thoughts and feelings into existence. Because I had a criminal record. I had a rap sheet from my past of 18 different things. I had like 10 criminal records, or warrants for my arrest. Not 10 criminal records, sorry. Warrants for my arrest. I had assault. I had domestic. I had, you name it, jaywalking, cigarettes, or violations. So many different things that if I got pulled over, I was done for. How did I also have the ability to go into my mind and send thoughts to judges, to doctors, to lawyers, to police officers, and change the perspective of reality to overcome a lot of things? It wasn't just fate or good luck. I had a lot against me. I had everything riding against me. So I was able to overcome that, but I realized quickly these are sacrifices. So when I teach it, the reason why we make sacrifices and oaths is for our manifestations. So I know it's not a sequence and a seamless interview here, but
No, it's great. You're good.
there's so much that I want to share with you and people, that I hope someone's patient enough to go through this and articulate what I'm saying and why I'm saying it. But, it took a lot to stop getting arrested. I used to get arrested every week, and every second weekend I was in the holding cell. I've been to jail 3 times, and I was in the holding cell over 10 times. I used to be a drug addict. I used to create cycles of being homeless, being kicked out, being fired from jobs. I've been fired from over 50, let's say 50, let's lower the number, 50 different jobs. I've never been able to keep a job. How do you break those cycles? Not being educated. How was I able to go to college and pass with high 90, 96, 100% on my final exams to upgrade? I started back at grade 6 when I entered it in college at 23, 24 years old. Can you imagine? So a lot of these things that I haven't really shared before, like details, I tell my clients, but it's not to boast or brag or nothing. It's to share with people that whatever you're going through, you can do it too. You can overcome a lot of your pain and suffering and your anger and your road rage or whatever you're going through. You can use it to transmutate. You can utilize it while you're going through what you're going through right now, currently. You can use and harness, but you have to also make an oath that you are going to change in this life, like you're changing. Don't just do it and lie, because I used to do that, and I made a lot of mistakes. It took me 10, 15 years, and the mistakes that I made, I'll give you an example. Some of the fraudulence, I made these false promises and oaths and dedications. I'm going to do this, and I made a mistake. I kept smoking. And I promised the universe, source, my higher self, my spirit, that I'll stop. I'll do half, or I'll do 4 puffs, and then I'll put it up. But in my mind, I went back to the old me, and I'm like, no, I just smoked the whole thing. And then I smoked 3 smokes that day when I was supposed to only take 3 puffs. And that was my promise. And I said, okay, you know what? If I don't do this, and you keep noticing I'm not doing this, and I had an inner talk with myself and source, I said, give me pneumonia. Just that's my sacrifice and my dedication that I want to change. I literally caught pneumonia so severely that I caught it 7 times. Every time a new season came, I caught pneumonia severely that the nurses and doctors were mad at me that I waited so long that my capacity of fluid was here. I had no more oxygen left in my lungs. I was coughing out water, liquid from my lungs, filling up cups like this, like 5, 6 times. That's how much fluid I had in my lungs. And I was thinking to myself, my higher self, is this because I lied? And yes, it's because you lied. It's because you make a false, empty promise to the universe, to source, to your kids, your family, to the universe, and whatever you trust or believe in, energy. And when you're really this dedicated to change, this is why marriages break, relationships break. This is why you are the parent we are with our children. This is why we don't heal. We manifest, plumbers coming to fix our ceilings, and our cars are breaking down all the time, because we're the same way. But when we can change the way we are, sometimes your plumbing will stop, and people will stop stealing from you. Your car engine will stop breaking down. All of this correlates to our life. That's what I'm trying to express to people. And that's what happens with some people, my clients. Like, when you don't realize, you think, oh, help me manifest money. But then I find out months later that they didn't tell me about their engine or their tire. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me this before? Why did we wait this long? Now that I know the missing piece in this puzzle, the root cause, let's work on this. What are your thoughts before you get in your car? Oh, well, I worry that I'm going to get the parking spot, or I worry that I'm going to get out onto the highway or get there on time, or I worry that this car stays good because I just changed my tire last week. So I put so much fear and worry into the energy of my car, and this keeps happening. I'm like, oh my God. This is why that's happening. And so we work on other areas in him or her, and then those things can change, you know? So there's so many things that relate to life that we don't realize. It's not just subconscious, it's we gotta realize that it was our paradigms too. It's our thinking, it's our thoughts, it's our feelings. It was my mother. It is my mother. It's my father. You know, sometimes in life we can't change our family. So how do we change if they're not changing? How? Like, and there's so much in teaching. There's so much to learn and grow and develop. You know, and it was not easy. It's not a walk in the park. I said it took me over a decade to get here. 20 years more to get here. And I'm still changing. I'm still making efforts and still going through hard times and still trying to, it's constant. I'm sure
Oh, yeah.
Personal lives. Yeah. It's not overnight,
Yeah. Malcolm, thank you so much for sharing about your experiences and your life journey of transformation. I want to give you a chance to share with people where they can find you and more about your work. You do coaching, correct?
Yes. You can reach out to me on social media. Send me a direct message. You can find me, on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You can Google me and watch. You can YouTube me. I have testimonials, written and video testimonials. You can reach out to me personally and just contact me and let me know how I can serve or what you're looking for. And yeah, you can find me, Malcolm Nair, Guided Intelligence. I have a self-help book for children that a lot of my adult people buy as well, called Arnav's Affirmations. It's also on Amazon.
I'll have Malcolm's links in the description so people can find those and get in contact with you. And the final question that I ask all my guests is, if you could give one message to everyone on the planet, what would it be?
Trust even in the unknown, and trust and be okay being vulnerable, being comfortable being uncomfortable. There's a fine line between spiritual and duality, and where we are in the density here, with the unknown, with the control, with the expected and the unexpected. So tread in both comfortably, and just through it all, trust and get yourself out and focus and wake up in the morning grateful before you open your eyes. Become aware of your consciousness steadily each and every day. Be grateful and thankful that you are in your body, your spirit's in your body, and that you can do this. And don't give up because you're in this body.